What's up, everyone? In my last video, I mentioned that I heard a grinding noise in the rear of my vehicle. I suspected it may have been the brakes. It looked like it was the brakes whenever I put it up on the lift. And I just received the replacement parts today, and I'm getting ready to install those now on my Infiniti FX35. So it was the left rear brake that was going bad, and thank goodness I just got these parts today. Take a look at this. It's been getting really bad over the last 2 days. Look at all this dust on this wheel. This was cleaned less than 5 days ago. Just for a comparison, take a look at a clean wheel. Even though it's not really that clean, you can still see a big difference. This has been sounding really bad the last day or two, like I said. So hopefully I can get these new brakes installed today. Car parts and big brake kits are really expensive, so in today's video I'm going to show you how I'm saving a ton of money on this big brake kit, not only to fix my vehicle but also improve the performance. For this upgrade I got these massive, nearly 14-inch rotors and these 2 piston calipers. These I sourced based off the 370Z sports model. So they are the same brakes used on the 350Zs or any of the Nissan Infiniti sports models. In this year range, my Infiniti FX35 is a 2011, so I sourced a 2011 350Z parts. Big brake kits can cost you several thousands of dollars, so in this case what I did is I went to my local auto parts store and ordered these rotors, calipers, and new brake pads. These rotors might not be quite as high spec as some other sports rotors out there, but these calipers are typically remanufactured OEM parts, so you're saving tons of money with the upgraded performance. Now, I did this same setup on the front when I originally bought this vehicle. And in this case, I actually used a DBA rotor. DBA rotors, from all of my research, are supposed to be some of the best rotors out there. But in this case, since this is an older vehicle and I don't run this vehicle real hard, I decided to save the money and just use these rotors from the auto parts store. Another thing is, whenever I did this job on the front brakes, I contacted Z1 Motorsports. They mentioned for this build that you needed some longer banjo bolts. So I've got those here, as well as my Motul Dot 5.1 brake fluid. So, quick story. I previously had a G35 many years ago, and one night I was out running several high-speed runs, and I actually had a brake failure where I was hard on the brakes getting ready to make a turn, and the brake pedal just went soft. It went right to the floor. Luckily I did not have to turn, and I continued going straight and got the car slowed down. I've heard of stories like these on other 350Cs and 370Zs where they've had brake failure on the track from overheating brakes, and the most common cause of that is your brake fluid. Most cars come standard with DOT 3 or DOT 4 brake fluid, which has a lower boiling point than the DOT 5. Plus, the DOT 5.1 can be used in DOT 3 or DOT 4 brake vehicles. You will also need extra fluid when you're doing this job because you're taking up more volume, being that the calipers are bigger. So be sure to order extra brake fluid when you do this job. I'll leave links to this brake fluid down in the description below, as well as a list of these parts. Alright guys, I got the caliper off, having a little trouble getting this rotor off. I wasn't able to get this off, so I just soaked this again in PB Blaster. I'm going to let this set for a while. I'm also going to try to get a longer bolt to run into here, and worst case, might have to get out some heat to try to get this unseized, but I just wanted to show you what I'm seeing here. So as you can see on this rotor, this is where the pad was eating into the rotor, and it just destroyed the inside of this rotor. And here is the pad. As you can see, there's no pad left. It's just the metal backing, and it's completely destroyed. So, you know, my philosophy, like a lot of guys that build cars, anytime something breaks on your car, it's always a good time to replace it with better parts. Hoping this brake kit's gonna work. I just took the rotor and lined it up to the other. There is a difference in diameter on the hub portion of the rotor. This area right here is a slightly smaller diameter on this rotor than it is on the rotors on my car. So like I said, I hope that's gonna work. But anyway, I'm gonna let this set for a little while and go get some more stuff to try to get this rotor off. All right, I finally got this rotor broke loose. I let this set overnight with penetrating oil. I went back and sprayed around the studs as well as around the hub with PB Blaster. I did that a couple times. I had to really hammer on this thing to get this to come loose. I tried hammering on this surface here between the studs, but this rotor is trash, so I resorted to hammering here on the outside. It took a lot of pounding to finally break this thing loose, but now that I got it loose, I'm gonna take it off and see if I can put the new rotor on. All right guys, I ran into a problem when installing the 370Z rotors on this FX35. Basically, the diameter of the hub on the 370Z was about 3/4 inch smaller than the ones that came off here. And I contacted Z1 Motorsports. They said that they didn't have anything for this. They didn't have a solution. They said that they knew that guys had done it, but they didn't know what parts they had used. So I had to get creative. I went over to AutoZone's website, where they actually give the dimensions of this hub and center, as well as the overall rotor, the thickness of the rotor, and the overall thickness from the hub to the back of the rotor. And the closest thing I could find was I went to a Infiniti Q50 Sport. So this is the Q50 Sports rear brakes, which has the same rotor diameter of 350 millimeters as the 370Z, and the hub itself is 202 millimeters versus the FX35 200 millimeters. So it's about 2 millimeters bigger. In the automotive world, 2 millimeters can mean a lot, but I believe in this case, since this is the e-brake and there is some adjustability to it, I should be able to open that up a little bit, so we still have proper functionality of the emergency brake. The overall rotor depth from the hat to the back of the rotor is the same as the FX35, which was also the same on the 370Z. However, the FX35 had a much narrower rotor, which the 350Z had a couple millimeter wider rotor, and these match those on the 350Z, which should work for these 350Z calipers. So the next thing there is to do is I need to either cut or remove the brake dust shield. In order to remove it, you got to remove the center hub and bearings. So knowing that that's a lot of work, that's not something I want to do. So I'm actually going to try and cut off the brake shield here right along where this sticks out, so that this rotor can set properly. Alright guys, I got the brake dust shield trimmed back. The rotor fits good, but one other problem that I'm noticing here is when I go to put on the caliper, the brake dust shield also interferes with that, so I'm gonna have to trim that back as well. So I now got the parking brake adjusted and dialed in. What I did is I put the rotor on here, and I had expanded this parking brake, but whenever I turned it, I could hear a little bit of rubbing. So I brought this back in just a little bit, just about a quarter turn, once I didn't hear any more rubbing. And so now that is set up, I can go ahead and get the rotor on, and then I can put on the caliper with the brake pads.